What's up, everyone? It's the OOTP GM. I want to welcome you to the 12th episode of my Detroit Tigers GM Let's Play here on Out of the Park Baseball 18. So we're here at the international free agent signing period, and as kind of expected, we've fallen off a little bit. Our record's fallen to 40 and 41. We're now 6.5 games back in the division, and we just have kind of gone through a little bit of a cold stretch here. And I mean, I'm not surprised with this. I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not incredibly disappointed because I wasn't expecting to contend this year. So I wanted to get you guys caught up on what happened. We ended up signing all of the draft picks these are the impossible guys that we're not going to sign, but we signed everybody else. So we got those guys taken care of. And then we also made a big trade, here very recently, in fact, middle of June. So this trade was one that was kind of offered to me in a deal. So in the trade, we traded Christian Vasquez, Connor Harrell, who was a young outfielder, and Drew Verhagen. We moved these guys, and in exchange, we got Starling Marte, and the Pirates retained 50% of his salary. We got Cade Pollard and Kyle Jacobson, are two young prospects. So we got those guys in return. Harrell was a guy who his ratings look really high, but he was a one-star player for us, and he hadn't played for us all that much, and we have other young outfielders, so that's why I was willing to include him in the deal. So we just made that trade for Marte, and I was willing to do that because we only are taking on half of his salary, and we get a couple of small prospects in return, and Vasquez just wasn't playing very well, and this opened the door for, I thought, Pentecost to play, but unfortunately, that hasn't completely been the case. We called up Perez, our prospect, and he's been playing, but he's been doing okay, so I can't be too upset. And then I also am going to make another trade here right at the deadline. So Davidson is a guy that we've had on our team. We picked him off of waivers a couple of years ago, and he's been okay. But I found a deal that we were able to make with the Giants because the Giants are in contention, and they lost their third baseman, Arroyo, I think his name is, for the entire season. Go here, show you real quick. Yeah, Christian Arroyo, they lost him for the entire season, and they're only a game out in the NL West. So they are in desperate need of a third baseman. So I was willing to send them Davidson because they won't take Castellanos, and I understand why, long-term deal. So we trade them Davidson, Kyle Jacobson, which is one of the prospects that we got in the deal for Marte, and then Philip Clark, who's a catcher. He hasn't really done anything, so I'm okay including him. In exchange, we get Alex Faedo, who's the guy that we missed out on in the draft a couple years ago, and this young 18-year-old right field prospect. So we get these two guys in exchange for these three. I'm going to go ahead and complete this trade. And obviously some of the guys not a little upset about seeing Davidson leave, but I felt like this was a really good deal for a team that's rebuilding. We get Faedo and Julio Rodriguez. We get these two young guys that might be able to help us down the road. Faedo sooner than later. Hopefully he's a young stud pitcher that we can pair with with Fulmer and Norris. So we make that deal. And then as you can see, some of the numbers for the team have kind of started to slip off a little bit. Some guys are still playing pretty well. But what we're going to do is I'm going to call up Zach Shepard, who was playing for us a little bit at the beginning of the year, but we're going to call him back up. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask Osmus for the lineups. And the one thing that's bothered me a little bit ever since we made the deal for Marte is he hasn't put Marte in the starting lineup, and which has made Marte upset, which obviously is not good even though Marte is a really good leadership guy. Osmus, for whatever reason, is refusing to put Marte in the starting lineup. I understand we already have kind of a logjam at left field with Christian Stewart and then Upton, who's currently injured. But for whatever reason, he's refusing to put Marte in the starting lineup, which is part of the reason I got Marte in the first place. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that situation because I understand why like Jacoby Jones and Jay Bruce are starting, but I thought that he was going to put Marte in the DH spot. Instead, he's got Castellanos there because we called up this Zach Shepard, and Zach Shepard is now starting at third base. So we'll have to keep an eye on that situation. I thought making the move for Marte was going to work out really well for us, but so far it's been unfortunate. And then obviously we might have to move on from Osmus too, depending. But that's a decision for a later day. So we go into the international amateur screen, and I was looking over the guys, and there is absolutely nobody this year that we are going to sign. All 2-star and 1-star guys. So we're not going to sign any of these guys. They're not worth the money that they're looking for. So we're going to skip right on past that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward to the announcement of the All-Star teams. And then I will go to the trade deadline and we'll see if we're going to make any more moves, if we're going to sell off any more players, because it doesn't look like we're going to be in contention, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, so we are back, and the All-Star rosters have been announced. And Michael Fulmer makes it for us. I was happy to see that. Miguel Cabrera made the All-Star team. And that was it. Those are the only 2 guys from our roster that ended up making it. I thought there would be a chance that we would get a third guy because we had a couple other guys that were playing pretty well, but those are the only 2 Detroit Tiger representatives. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to move forward here I'm going to move forward to the trade deadline, and once we get to the trade deadline, we'll see where the team's at and if we're going to try to make any other moves because, like I said, I wasn't expecting to win this year, and I don't want to make any crazy moves to potentially hurt our rebuilding process, but at the same time, if we can get values for some players, then I might look to do that. So I will see you guys at the end of the month at the trade. Alright guys, so we are back here at the trading deadline, and I apologize. I was doing a bunch of different things off screen trying to find trades and stuff, and I completely forgot to turn my recorder back on when I did finally make a trade. So I apologize about that, but I will show you guys the trade that we ended up making. So we ended up making a deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. We ended up trading them both Nick Castellanos and Jay Bruce. Bruce is a guy who's not going to have much value for us moving forward. I figure capitalize on it while we can because he's not a part of the future plans. And then Castellanos, we signed him to that long-term deal, but he kind of got pushed out of a starting role, and he had all that money moving forward. And they just lost Maikel Franco to an injury, so they were looking for a replacement third baseman. And we were able to get some decent prospects in the deal. We got this Tyson Miller, who's a starting pitching prospect, number 117 in the game. And then we got Reynaldo Rivera and Santi Prada. This guy's just a toss-in. But we ended up to get 3 prospects in return for Bruce and Castellanos. So not a bad trade. Like I said, Bruce and I was hesitant to trade Castellanos, but in the end, he had that really great year, and then he's kind of struggled since then. So that's why I ultimately decided to make the move that I did. So that's the move that we made there. And unfortunately, we have fallen out of contention. That's why I was comfortable making that decision. We're on a 6-game losing streak right now, and we're 11.5 back in the division, and we are 4.5 back now in the wild card. And like I said, I don't expect us to make the postseason this year, but I think this continues to set us up nicely. We're continuing to rebuild the farm system. And with the trade, Marte now moves into the starting lineup. He struggled a little bit since he's come over, but like I said, I feel comfortable having him on the team moving forward. And then we've got, a few other guys that are here moving forward. Cabrera continues to have a really good year, and Jonathan Scope has also had a really good year for us. And Stewart's had a nice bounce back here after struggling last year. So we also recently lost Norris to a season-ending injury, so we've had to continue to shuffle our pitching rotation. And Norris was just starting to pitch better, too. His ERA was starting to come down, so that was a bit of a bummer. Fulmer continues to be great. I couldn't find a trade for Zimmerman. We are stuck with him most likely until his contract runs out. I might try to trade him again in the offseason, but I couldn't find a trade for him. And so we've had a lot of different moving parts, but we're going to, make the best of it and continue to try and move forward here. But that's the only move that we are going to make here at the trade deadline. Like I said, I tried to find other moves for other players, guys that we could look to move, but I just couldn't find any. Guys weren't willing to take on salary, and Cabrera's an interesting case because I would like to move Cabrera while his value is high. The problem with Cabrera is he obviously has the no trade clause, but this is the biggest obstacle here is his salary is just so huge for the next few years, and I don't have a precedent to go off of. With some of the other trades that I made, like when I made the Verlander trade that I had to force through, I at least had precedents to go off of with that. I don't have that with Miguel Cabrera, so I'm not comfortable forcing a trade when I don't know what the situation is or how appropriate it would be to make a certain move. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the episode right here. And I will see you guys at the end of the 2019 season and the beginning of the 2019 off season for the next episode. So as always, I want to thank you guys for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Comments and feedback are always welcome. And I will see you guys next episode for the 2019 off season. Thanks for watching.